Hello, and welcome to the inaugural season of the Fourth Branch podcast. I'm glad you found us. Our goal here is simple. Let's get real people together to talk about real topics and issues. This week, we'll be discussing information consumption, and I've got a question for you. Considering how vast and accessible information is supposed to be in our great technological age, how easy is it for you to find out the things you want to know? And why do you think that might be? As is customary on our podcast, we want to explore thoughts, ideas, beliefs, and opinions from across the spectrum. On the Fourth Branch podcast, the way we see it, every voice should find value in the arena of public discourse, including you and me. My name is Atala Osama, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the conversation. Let's get started. All right, welcome to the Fourth Branch podcast. My name is Atala Osama. I'm here with my co-host, Brian Henderson. How you doing today, sir?
Pretty good. And how are you?
We're going to talk a little bit about the availability of information contrasted against our seemingly societal desire to just hone in on one specific or one specific set of facts, despite the wealth of information that appears to be available. So I know we were kicking around some things, and I think this is a fascinating subject to discuss. I think that, I'm like you. I predate the internet, and I can remember going to the library and having to research something or borrowing a set of encyclopedias so that I could do some schoolwork. It took much more effort to get information and get data. This is I don't want to state this as fact, but it appears to me that there was a time when you had to work much harder than you do now to get information. But despite that, we do not appear collectively to be more informed as a population. Is that in my head? Do you think there's any truth to that proposition?
I would use one word that's going to make it sound like I completely disagree with you. However, it's not what it sounds like, and I'll explain.
Yeah.
I think right now people are more informed than ever. And it's because of all of the information that is being put out in the media and through TikTok, social media, all of that. It's camps, it's special interest groups, it's I'm forgetting the political word for that really, but people are more informed, and because they're flying information. As they are being told to do, you pick this camp, you pick that camp. And unfortunately, I attribute some of this to our evolution as the animal that underlies everything that we are. You could either choose to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and go and plant and sow and till and maintenance your crop, or you can go to the grocery store for about an hour and come back with everything you need for a week.
Right.
And that's what I think the internet has become. It's become a mix of special interests jumping aggressively on the fact that we love to do things efficiently out of almost a necessity for survival. Knowledge is power. People know that kind of innately, but they don't really know what knowledge is, and they don't know what the truth is in reality. So there are people who are very happy to come in and tell you, look, no, reality, that's my team. That's my team. That's what I want you to believe. That's what reality is. And we're like, wait, how do I find that out? And we pick up our Star Trek tricorders, which is our cell phones, and we go, okay, so what's the truth on this? And they watch a few TikToks, we'll go to some YouTube things, and hey, that was quick. I feel like I know a lot about this now. It makes it in the end like it was harder in a way, like you said, but if you had to do something and it was going to be difficult, you at least wanted to make sure that your end result was accurate, that it was as right as possible. You wanted to not just come back in fifth grade with that book report to the teacher with the first magazine you saw that had the word airplane written on it. You wanted to look at a few different books. Now you turn on the internet and everybody's like, here's the answer.
That's so information was more valuable because it was harder to get.
That's a good way of looking. It's an angle of looking at it that I use. Like it's if you work hard for something, you have to work hard for it. You don't want to come away with a mess. You don't want to come away with garbage. If you have any integrity, you worked hard for it, so you don't want to come up with hey, we know you were at the library for 6 hours yesterday, but you're completely wrong. How did you do that?
Right.
Whereas everything is instantaneous now. And the ease with which you can find people who agree with what you're already thinking, which makes it even more easy. Just kind of, it's a spiral out of control that makes people, I hate to use the word, but it makes people intellectually lazy. Reading a book is an awful thing to someone probably born after, not everyone, of course, but to someone born after the year 2000, because you mean I have to take more than 5 minutes to understand the Red Badge of Courage?
5 minutes,
which was a horrible book anyway. But
my wife and I were watching something. I can't remember what it was, and someone posted a McDonald's commercial from the 70s, right? I mean, and the exploitative nature of the commercial aside, right? Because this was clearly geared for Black people, like Motown sound and all Black people. What struck me most about that commercial was the length of the commercial. That commercial was 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes long. I can't remember when the last time I saw a commercial that was 2 minutes long.
Right.
The commercial had a story. It had a story. It had an arc. It was, they got up early for church. It was a McDonald's commercial. They got up early for church, and the grandmother wanted everybody to eat, and they didn't have time to cook, and they went to McDonald's and got a McDonald's breakfast, and the grandmother was skeptical of the value of the breakfast, and then she expected, and they won her over at the end, and everybody was happy, and they got to church on that. It was a whole story. And you wouldn't see, and then I remember the Calvin got a job, right? Calvin
classic.
Walking through the neighborhood,
classic,
and hey, Calvin,
he's got his property.
I can't remember when I've seen a commercial of that length, and I don't want to say our capacity is any different. Maybe it's just the expectation that it's going to be delivered. And I know there's other factors that involves in that, right? I mean, what the cost of a commercial's got to be 4 or 5 times what it was in 1978. You don't have the budget to shoot and pay for a commercial that long, and I'm sure that factors into it. But I don't think we collectively would sit and watch a commercial that long. I don't.
Oh, there's no way.
I don't.
There's no way. Like, people are willing to pay to not have commercials at all. So, there's entire 2 generations that are completely commercial averse. I guess what I'll say is, back to kind of what our initial point or idea is for this is, are people less informed? And again, I'll go back to the traditional informed. I won't use my information from this point forward to make it not confusing. People are so much less informed, and it's about the substance of the information that they're getting.
Agree.
It's you can watch a commercial, again, going back to commercials. I watched an interview, or not an interview, it was a speech. And excuse me, let me correct that again. It was I watched a whole lot of them, in a short period of time, so it's hard to remember.
Right.
So anyway, it was totally contradictory information. On one delivered piece of information, it was Trump is clearly leading the Republican surge. Like, he would clearly be the nominee if there were not all of these things going against him, legal things in Colorado, and et cetera, et cetera. Then I saw a campaign commercial for Nikki Haley where the commercial clearly stated, and in kind of an obfuscated kind of way, she is the best candidate to beat Biden because Trump couldn't do it. And it's like, if you're a Nikki Haley fan, then what do you believe? Do you believe the polls over here, or do you believe the polls over there? Because two camps just told you two totally different things. And as we've said many times, where's the middle ground? Where are the people who are trying their best to just present the facts of the matter and let the people make decisions? So it's the quality of the information. It's skewed. It's
So when
it's
you
fun.
had a question like that, in the past, that is what the newspapers would be for. That is what the evening news would be for, right? Some in-depth analysis, and you read an article or watch the news and gain some perspective. Well, all that information is still available because polls are not new, right? Political spin is not new. But if you wanted to, in 1980, if you wanted to look at the Republican field at the time, and what made Ronald Reagan so popular was the rallies and the interviews and, him making himself available and him clearly articulating what his vision was and all of the things that I would expect a traditional candidate to do. Well, fast forward to now, the reason that Donald Trump is so far ahead in the polls is that his supporters aren't asking about his positions. They aren't asking about what he wants to. He's just right. He's just right for them. And it's almost immovable and immutable in their minds. I'm not a pollster, but I don't see anecdotally Donald Trump could go to jail, and I think he would be elected president out of spite. I that's just my personal belief. They're that fervent in their loyalty to him and what they feel he represents. My question in that is, and I'm going to go with, let's say 40 and up, because I'm going to excuse the digital age generational people. Why would someone my age base their opinion about an issue on a reel or a TikTok? Why would we do? If it's all you've ever known, I can kind of, okay. But I'm accustomed to multiple sources of information. I'm accustomed to gathering data and asking questions and having conversations because in my formative years, that is how you came to learn about a subject. It appears to me, and I this is, the question that I want to ask. It appears to me that as well intended as the internet, I'm sure it was, and had giving access, I don't know if there's a desire for that. To use your farmer's analogy, I think grocery stores are successful because people don't want to spend the time to grow their own food. They don't want to do it. They would rather have the convenience of going to the store. And I wonder, would people rather have the convenience of ready-made, packaged talking points and opinions and positions? Would they prefer that over doing the work of educating yourself and having difficult discussion, coming to consensus? Is this really showing us something about ourselves and our nature that maybe we didn't know was?
I think it definitely is. It is. It's almost like the good news is that we're kind of, and I'll use a little bit, some people might interpret this as strong language, but the good news is that we're kind of being manipulated by our natural factory settings. So it's kind of the good news. Like, no one's got to say a chip in our brain yet to guide us toward anything. But I think I'll go to what we discussed very briefly beforehand, and it was net neutrality. And because I think that reading this definition of it will kind of say how it happens that people would rather just take one moment, and why people our age would even fall for taking one moment to find out what their position is. So the definition of net neutrality, according to Oxford Languages, is the principle that internet service providers should enable access to all content and applications, regardless of the source, and without favoring or blocking particular products or websites. quote unquote legislation to protect net neutrality. I believe, and from what I've seen, the key words in there is enable access to all content. It's enable access. And the regardless of source and without favoring or blocking particular products or websites, well, we just know that market forces make that happen anyway.
Right.
What net neutrality actually turned out to be, and the people who did the research and read into the legislation realized it was a control grab. It would actually decrease the amount of access that people have to varying opinions by highly promoting those who could pay for that promotion, and kind of throttling is a word I think that came from out of this. And I could be mistaken. I'm by no means a computer expert. Throttling the people who are throttling them and beating them around the face and the neck, and by slowing their, feed into the internet, so that when they're searched for, they're not found. They're on page 93 instead of page 1. Net neutrality basically turned out to be quite the opposite of what you would think the name says, which is to be expected if it's anything like any other legislation. It's the opposite of what the name says. So what that did was it enabled people our age, bringing this back. Why is it someone that is our age is able to look on the internet for a few minutes, maybe an hour, and think they've got it all figured out? And it's because you've either, when you got on the internet, you either went into one rabbit hole or the other. You went into the pro or the con. And depending on how determined the largest portions of media are to have you find this rabbit hole instead of the other one, that's what you're going to find. So now the person who is our age and older is saying, well, from the moment I clicked on this and put it into the Google box, that's people way older than us, put it into the Google box, it's been telling me pretty much the same thing. So I have now pseudo satisfied my ability to look at multiple sources before I make up my mind. But you're not really looking at multiple sources. I love that. You're not really looking at multiple sources. So I think that's a little bit of how people our age fall for that, and say things like, and this might be controversial, right? Because this is supposed to be true. It's supposed to be true. People who will say that Donald Trump is guilty of sedition and, being a traitor to our country. And they believe that because if they see the large portion of the media and what is presented, they do not see the videos that are not presented. They do not see the part of his speech that was taken out and is never presented anymore. They do not see what happened inside the Capitol building. They do not see those things without searching directly for them, trying to get out of the main narrative. But when you're going to the internet to question something and say, why is this? You don't know what question to ask yet. You don't know how to say, oh, also, and give me the information that you don't want to give me. There's no button for that. People broke things, and there were people in senators and congressmen in their offices. Yes. Okay. How did they get in there? How did they get in there is never, ever discussed. He incited a riot and violence. What about the part of the speech where he clearly said, look, no violence. Don't break and don't do damage. Because he was actually sticking to the mantra of, those other people cause damage and riots and violence. We're not like them. Right. He was literally saying, no. This is the opposite of what we do. They didn't see the recordings of the body cameras of the Capitol Police saying, these people aren't doing anything out here. But what we're doing is we're firing on them with pepper spray and non-lethal things that are penetrating their skin. And the more we shoot, I think a quote from one of the Capitol Police was, we're doing all these things to try to disperse these people, but these innocent people, we are shooting at innocent people, but all we're doing is making them more angry every time we do. Right. That video footage is not going to be in your Google search. So if you're older than us or our age, and you came up through the times we came up in, you saw the societal ups and downs that we saw. It's easy to look at that as it's presented in the mainstream media and go, yeah, that just makes sense. That just makes sense. That guy is, oh my gosh. He might as well be on the side of a mountain somewhere in Georgia, being worshipped by General Lee, what I mean? But it's not the fact of the matter.
It's the way you're presenting it. It's almost like you have to think of yourself as a consumer. Like you're being sold a product. It's like going into a grocery store and you see fat-free, sugar-free donuts. And these are healthy, fat-free, sugar-free keto donuts. Now it looks like a donut, right?
Right.
All the packaging is telling you that this donut is better than this other donut that's next to it. That's not, keto, gluten free, all the healthy buzzwords or whatever that they're trying to do to sell you these donuts. So the way you present that, it's almost like you have to assume from the beginning that you're being sold something rather than you're being told something.
Fact.
Because if you have that approach, then you can say, okay, this was presented to me in a particular way to serve a particular purpose. Now let me flip the package over and read the ingredients. Let me look up and see what this ingredient actually is and what it does. So in a way, you're having to probably do more work than we would have done previously. If I had just if I just wanted to go and pick up my local newspaper and read the editorial, that begs another question though. So if I'm the information providing platform and my business model is the collection of eyeballs, and I achieve that by presenting a desired narrative, is that nefarious? Is there anything wrong with my model? Are you telling me that I'm doing something wrong because if this is what they want to see, I'm a business, right? If people want protein, sugar-free donuts, and I can find some way to legally say that my donut is keto-friendly, sugar-free, protein, if
all natural,
right? This is all natural. if I can find a way to do that, and that's my business model, and it satisfies a public need, is there anything wrong with that?
It depends on the nature of the world at that time. It's like, and what you're talking about. It's kind of like the framers of the Constitution, as they're referred to. The press is not there as set forth by the Constitution. The press is not there to catch eyeballs. It is there to enlighten minds to the facts of the world so that informed decisions can be made. So it's like if the world is fine and what you do in your magazine is about cooking, for example, it's a cookbook, then you're just fine, for going along with the trend of, oh yeah, this soy-based, no chocolate added chocolate thing. Taste of
right, yeah, a chocolate-free chocolate chip cookie,
and you put it on the cover of your magazine every day, and it doesn't taste anywhere near as good as the other thing, and it's not good for you at the same time.
Right.
It's one of those preference things that walks the line of your own morality and all that kind of stuff. But it is a choice. It's a choice because that's your chosen business. That's how you feed yourself. That's how you feed your family. That's how you do things. You're not destroying the world. Someone can pick that thing up and still read the ingredient list and go, I have no idea what chemical that is.
Right.
You're not leading people irrevocably into, the bowels of hell doing this. You're just pointing in a direction that people want to hear anyway. All the dieters and people who want to eat a chocolate bar but not feel guilty about it.
Right.
So they're complicit. But if you look at it from in terms of what we're discussing nowadays in the media, it's absolutely wrong to misrepresent what is happening. Absolutely wrong. And when you say that, and I'll just go out here. I'll just say this. One of our presidential candidates, Vivek, I believe is,
Ramaswamy.
He says a lot of things that he's a smooth talker. But the poor guy does not understand the definition, has never apparently read the definition of genocide because he could not get that right. He said, and I won't say what for the purposes of this video. I won't go into what we were talking about, but
yeah,
he said, I won't call that genocide because that's a strong word. I'll just say, these people that are there are living their best life there, better there than anywhere else in the world. And you can't really call that it's like, wait, what planet are you on, man? What planet are you on? Send your kids there to live for a while. We'll see if they're living their best life. But I will move quickly away from that and just say that a lot of times people our age we are completely complicit in, and people not our age, we're completely complicit in being duped and fooled because again we don't want to do the work. Part of it is because of our hardwiring, to do things quickly and efficiently because that conserves energy. It all, down to the animal part of us. Conserve energy, conserve time, because that is life. And we're manipulated in that way. Okay, you want to save time? All right. The first 20 hits you get on Google are all going to be skewed toward the same direction. We're even going to put some in there that appear to be refuting some of this, but they all end up back kind of in the same, like a controlled opposition type of a thing. And by the time you've read 20 of them, like you said, you've done a good bit of work at this point. It might not have been in pages that fold, but you just read the equivalent of 30 pages of stuff. And it's like, it all says the same thing. And it appears that unlike the library where I'd have to pull it off the shelf, go find it to get these different sources. Hey, look, it all says this was New York Times. This was LA Times. This was AP. This was Reuters. This was, okay, so that must be what's going on over there. It must be what's happening. When there's another side of it with people our age that makes it a little more shameful anyway. Because one thing that you learn as you get older is how much you didn't know before.
Sure.
You really learn that, wow, some things I was really convinced about, I did not know really where it started or began. And our brains, though filled with more experiences and all that, it doesn't make us automatically able to discern between lies and truth. We're just a little better at it. But what we should know at our age is when we click on Google and see all of it is saying the same thing. When has that ever happened in our lives?
Right.
Everybody agree. Every network, every anchor is saying not just the same
red flag,
not just the same gist, but the same sentence. Like mockingbirds. I'll just put that out there.
Right.
Actually saying the same sentences on the same day at the same news hour, all at once. Anyone our age has to say, wait, hold on. How in the world is that possible?
Because if that were the case, if you had turned on the television, the nightly news in 1988 and heard the exact same thing told on 3 different networks, it would have been rejected. No one would have accepted that.
With the same video, same everything.
Right. No one would have accepted that. Right. The expectation was that this is, there's some journalistic integrity, and I think that's a good point. So if you carry that forward, is AP News responsible for what's on their feed, or is Facebook responsible for what's on your feed? Because I know the work that I have to do just to find different points of view, because it wants to push me to what it thinks I want to see. I find myself clicking on or not clicking on certain things because I don't want to train my algorithm to shoot me certain stuff. Right. And as a business model, I understand what Facebook is. They're trying to sell advertising space, right? I understand what they are trying to do, but do they have a responsibility to public discourse, or am I, as the consumer here, because I love the way you preface that. I am an information consumer. So is it my responsibility to know what I'm buying?
It depends on the organization. Per your question, it's like if it's AP, or Reuters, they're supposed to be trying to provide reality. That is the minimum expectation for a Reuters or an AP. What's happening in Somalia, right? If I go to
Right.
Reuters or AP, the minimum expectation that we should be able to have is that they will tell us the facts on the ground to the best of their knowledge, that they that they would actually have something that doesn't exist anymore, like a foreign correspondent, someone
Right.
actually
Right.
there.
Right.
We don't do that anymore, right? It's not necessary. It's a minimum requirement. When we go to Facebook, Twitter, and things like that, well, see, it should be that it's so clear that Facebook and Twitter are not where you should go to get your news about what's going on in the world. It should be very clear that that's not, because that should be ours. Those things should be
Right.
ours. If there's junk
Right.
in it, it's because we put it there. And whatever junk we're free to put on there, we put on there. There's the catch.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not free to put all the junk on there, all of it. That would expose it as a place that, no, you do not want to go find out what's going on there, because there's literally 20 different views of what's happening, and you will be confused forever because every view is allowed. It's not where you go. Journalistic integrity, which you mentioned earlier, that's what's missing. If AP and Reuters actually had people on the ground in the places they're talking about, if they actually just delivered the facts about what was going on in that area, not a narrative, then that would be journalistic, and that would be journalistic integrity. The minimum, meaning, look, don't even tell us what you think this means. Like, we're okay. There are bombs going off. People are dying. People are shooting at each other. But we're not going to say there's a war. We're just going to tell you that there are bombs going off, shooting, and that would be great. Okay, we're back on day 2. People are still dying. There's bombs going on. We're not even going to tell you necessarily who shot that rocket that hit that building, because quite frankly, how do they know? They can, however, change the screen to the Secretary of State of the United States. They can change the screen to the president or the leader of Russia. They can go to Xi Jinping and just tell us what they're talking about. What are they saying is happening? And we can compare all of those, put it together with the facts of what's going on the ground. And then we say, you know what, there's some kind of a war going on. There's a battle going on.
Right.
People are dying, and why? And that why becomes the next question. And those reporters with integrity are already working on that question because they know we want to know. But that doesn't happen.
That goes back to what I was saying earlier. I don't know collectively if that's what we want. I don't think we want that collectively. I think we want to, in between your aunt's pictures and the other stuff that you see on Instagram, in between that, you want to be able to see a clip that tells you what is going on.
Exactly.
I think that's what we want.
I agree.
And
too many of us.
Yeah, and I think there really needs to be a movement towards requiring some civic responsibility to self-education about an issue. If you're allowing yourself to be educated, to be satisfied by 1 and 2 minute clips and snippets, are you doing your part to be? How can you make informed decisions as an ill-informed person? So I look at us. I don't think it's the responsibility of Facebook. I don't think it's the responsibility of Reuters or AP. I think it is us. I think it's the fourth branch. I think we need to say, hey, listen, I'm going to educate myself, and I'm not going to allow the advertising driven model for these social media companies to be my basis of knowledge and understanding. I'm not going to allow the politically driven spin from CNN and Fox to be my basis of understanding, because I know that there's an agenda there, there's a message there, and I'm trying to be sold something. I'm going to reject that, and I'm going to get to the facts of what's going on. And if we can develop a hunger for that, then someone will want to feel that need. But right now, unfortunately, and I don't want to sound too cynical, I don't see much of an appetite for that that level of understanding. I don't. It feels good to feel like you're a part of the majority of something, and you shared it and I liked it, and then this person commented. Clearly we're all on the same page. I know my job is done. I don't have to do anything more, and I can feel like I'm a part of something when I'm really not.
Yeah.
It was just something that was sold to me, and I'm sitting here eating these disgusting, nasty, protein, chocolate-free chocolate donuts under the auspices that this is what we're all agreeing that we want to do, and this is what's best for us. And
No. It goes back to that human conditioning, that factory setting, like you said. Everybody wants a group. People want to belong to a group. They want to fit in. They want to, and it's largely fear based, right? I mean, you could say it's psychobiological, right? I mean, it is a hard wiring that says join a group because being out there by yourself is dangerous. Other groups
Right.
will take from you, or
Right.
they might laugh at you. So I agree with that completely. The appetite for it, especially if you look at Facebook, or it's really weird that Twitter appears, from the number of hits on pieces of information that might be counter the mainstream narrative. It might appear that the people on Twitter are more refined. Why are there more people able or willing to look at the counter narrative? And really, it comes back to, how long do you have to look? That's it. Like, Twitter,
Right.
Shorter profiles.
Right.
I mean, like, they're just dancing through that stuff.
Right.
And it's pretty much an awful thing. I mean, that we are wired that way, and that there are people that understand that. And for business purposes, also, that I won't say you can't blame them, but that they're going to take advantage of that knowledge. I mean, if it increases their sales, I
would.
Yeah,
I would.
And
if I could convince you that my dirt filled donut was chocolate free,
yeah,
and you're going to buy it,
yep.
I find hard finding fault in what they're doing, and I think that we're in the matrix of sorts, and I really like that analogy, right? I think we are information consumers, and we have to think of ourselves as being in a marketplace, as opposed to there being information centers that are dispassionate and unbiased, like you were describing earlier. I don't know if that exists anymore. I don't know where you can go and just get an unbiased, sanctioned expression of events.
Yep.
It's going to have some spin. It's going to be shaped in some form or fashion, and we're just going to have to do the work to cut through it and figure out what part of that is valuable and what part is okay. This sounds on track for an election year. We're going to maybe not cling to that part of the narrative so tightly, which kind of is unfortunate, because when you contrast that against this desire to just want to be able to have it packaged and handy, and like most other areas of our lives, one of the great things that came out of the pandemic was the explosion of delivery of goods. I don't know if we'll ever see the return of 24-hour stores. For what? I can just order it, and I can order it that night, and it'll be here in the morning. We love convenience. We really do. And it's a dangerous crossroads. You are shortcutting information center and allowing someone else to package what they feel you need to know.
And that efficiency want that people have, to conserve energy, energy and time. That is life, and that is how people are wired to look at it, to feel about it, more or less. Something to compare to that, kind of a metaphor or an analogy or whatever, I'm not sure which, would be a workout regime, a fitness approach that you're going to use. One fitness approach would be watch your diet, Don't eat things that are bad
Mm-hmm.
for you. Try and find healthy things to eat. Don't eat so much. Move. Now, I'm not in that strict move more category. That's not scientifically true, but you got to move, right? You do
Yep.
have to move. You have to, go do something. Go actually do some exercise. What we have now in our news, unfortunately, because people like to feel like they're in the know because knowledge is power, and without it, they're in fear. So the equivalent of what people are doing now is they're hopping on the internet and getting some steroids, and it doesn't take the work. They're not working hard for it at all. They come to work the next day, and I know this and I know that, and I am informed. I understand what's going on because they took the short route. They just looked at the top 20 things, or even worse, maybe it's equivalent. They just looked at the things that went according to what they could accept based on their
What they already knew,
right.
what they already thought, right?
And they found 20 other sources that agree with exactly what they were saying, and they come in and they're informed. Well, they need to ask the people that are using the steroids, how does that end for you?
Right.
What is the net benefit you get from that? Because you don't. Like, you end up right back where you started. Your internal organs and all other kind of things are probably fried, shot, and busted. And you looked great on the outside for a while. Your appearance was fantastic, but you were decaying at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to us socially, emotionally, when we continue to be led by the nose by terrible information sources. We feel good. Oh yeah, I know what's going on. The Syrian terrorists are everywhere. China has hacked our mainframes and blah, 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 blah.
So,
but
go ahead.
I was going to say, but if none of that is actually the truth, then all you've allowed is the people who use those lies to do whatever they wanted to do.
Right.
Which has totally different effects on your life than China hacking the mainframe. What they actually did was some things that might have, I don't know, destroyed, caused some damage to the U.S. economy that you live in. But you're totally oblivious to that because, no, the Russians did it.
Right.
That kind of.
What that makes me think of, man, is when I had a second grader, and I remember this vividly. I'm chaperoning a field trip, and I can't remember where we're going, but we're on the bus. And so I'm, sitting on a school bus with 30 kids. And one of the kids remarked that they were hungry. And so my son says, yeah, I hope we have hamburgers for lunch. So that was one of his favorite things to eat. And then another kid responded to him, you can't eat hamburgers because you don't eat pork. And he responded back, why can't I eat hamburgers? I've always eaten hamburgers. And the boy says, ham burger. It's a ham burger.
Come on.
And that prompted some other kids, yeah, hamburger. That makes so much sense. It's a hamburger and you said you don't eat ham. And it turned into this big debate, right? I'm talking about the bus was split, right? So you had half the bus that was hamburgers was ham, and then the other half was like, no, it's not ham. Now they couldn't articulate what it was, but they knew it wasn't ham, right? And that's kind of what you described, right? You're someone presents a narrative, it sounds right, I'm gonna like it. Well,
yeah.
After so many people like it, well, I want to like it too. And there were 6, 7 adults on the bus. Not one of those kids came to us to ask, is a hamburger ham?
Oh,
right. They had convinced themselves that their position was correct.
Even worse than conditioning themselves that their condition was correct, just like adults do. They didn't ask any adults because they were waiting to be validated by the people they wished to impress, which was you and the rest of the adults. They were going to hold the line, no matter which side of that they were on, and hoping that they come out the victor. instead of trying to really seek, okay, look, there's a lot of us that think this way. There's a lot of us that think this way. Obviously, there's something we need to know because one of us.
Because we both can't be right, right? Right.
Let's seek more information. How about these old people on this bus? And nobody asked that. And that goes with my. I've had this conclusion since I took my first job out of college.
Yeah.
Nothing fundamentally changes in human interaction and human social interaction past about third grade. You have, I've said this a few times, you have the people who are kind of intelligent, who really want more intelligence and power, and they usually become the leaders. You have the bullies who had power then just because they were bigger and stronger or whatever, and they become the henchmen of the people who were not that bright. And then you have the people who were actually bright that are now swept up in this whirlwind of bullies and people who have more power than brains. And we end up, that's a supposition. That's an assumption.
Yeah.
and the people who would like to think for themselves, I'll put myself in that camp, okay? We end up marginalized because the bullies are like, nah, hey, these guys over here who have more power than brains are paying us a lot. Shut up. Don't talk. You don't know what you're talking about. This is good for me. It's at least I'm not at the bottom, and they don't really, they are at the bottom. But, it's the same phenomenon. It's the third grade phenomenon that adults use, that those kids used on the bus. They're just going to keep arguing with each other, teaming up and looking at each other for reinforcement, but nobody's asking, but which one of them actually
right. Right. Because had someone just asked, we could have clarified what hamburger actually is.
Yep.
And I wonder if we are in a similar vein when it comes to our information consumption. It's just so much easier to just go along with what's already being presented rather than challenge. And I think that speaks to why, like kind of what we were saying in the beginning, despite the explosion and the ease of information that is available, people appear to know less. And I think it feels that way because no one wants to go against the narrative. No one wants to be the oddball, except for me. I'm weird that way, but no one wants to be in that position. And then even if they did, they don't want to do the work to find the information that they need in order to hold this counterpoint. And it really concerns me that it is we're making huge decisions collectively as a society. We're making huge decisions, and we're not even informed about to a degree that I think we need to be in order to make these decisions. Right? I mean, you can pick any contentious topic that you want to, and it's either an A or B. Which side of the fence are you on? That's it.
And you can't. Again, I say you can't blame a lot of people. I've always said also the smartest person on earth cannot make the best decision if they are in a vacuum of facts and real information. You can be the most intelligent, smartest person on earth, but if you're being told lies about the situation, you cannot make the best decision.
That's correct. Period.
And also on the other end of the spectrum, or I shouldn't. Goodness, everything is politicized nowadays. On the other end of that, if I lost my train of thought there, darn, politics just messed up my train of thought.
Right.
Okay. There's so many people that are struggling mightily to feed their families, to just hold on to that job, to try and find another job, to pay their bills. They're working their asses off every day. Maybe we can bleep that out.
No, we're fine.
And what that does is it makes it so that when, there are some people when they say, look, I don't have time to look into all of that. Yeah. They're literally not lying to you.
No, they don't.
To have just a little bit of peace of mind in this life, Some people, you know, they only have a couple hours of peace of mind a day, or the potential for peace of mind. So when you get the random normal things that happen in life taking up 3/4 of that, you know, they got
Right.
about a half an hour to chill every day. And why do you want
Right.
to look into the thing? What if the guy is right?
Right.
You know, and they are trying to take our rights away and make things worse. Why would you want to spend your time confirming that,
Right.
or possibly confirming that because you're actually looking to, you know, find something against it so you can sleep tonight? The way that they have us running around in this rat race and in the maze is a product of the preponderance of information, as you said in the beginning. It's a product of that, but it also is, you know, something that makes it so it's a self-fulfilling, it's a continuous cycle of just going around the drain and going down, because the more people that are put into a position where they are desperate, literally, where they are working their butts off all day long, every day, they have no spare time. The more
Right.
people that are like that, the more the prevailing narrative goes over without a hitch, the more things happen that people don't understand, and the worse it gets. And so what I guess I'll say this to kind of lighten it up a little bit. I am pleased when I see at times the number of people who are actually skeptical, because
Yeah.
that's all I ask. Just be skeptical. You know, you don't have to agree that this is a conspiracy over here and this is a plot over here and this is no, but don't accept everything just on face value.
You know, I have what my brother that's a year younger than me. He's not skeptical. He's a full on like conspiracy theorist. Like, is broccoli real type conspiracy? Yeah. So I, you know, I 80% of what he says, I can blame it on the weed, but sometimes, and what I enjoy about my conversations with him is that he raises questions, and it is just rare to have that. It is rare to have someone to raise questions, right? Now, I love my brother, but you know, I don't. I'm. He's never going to convince me that Jay-Z is leading a cult and then they had a baby so that they can sacrifice it, or that snow is a manufactured product that is not real, and you know,
Wow.
there's experiments where you can burn snow, and you're not going to convince me of any of that stuff.
Is that a real conspiracy out there?
That is 100% real.
Burn snow?
I'll send you the videos, and so I feel the need to say this so that because I don't want to purport, I don't want to support the conspiracy. So what people do is they'll get snow and they'll get a lighter and they'll put the lighter underneath the snow, and then the snow appears to there's no liquid coming down, and the snow appears to be melting because of the collection of soot on the snow. So the reason for that is, for any of my conspiracy theorist friends, the reason for that is that a lighter is not a strong enough heat source to overcome the cold in the snowball. So the little bit of water that is melted by the fire is quickly absorbed by the surrounding ice, and that's why it doesn't drip down. The black stuff that they see is the incomplete combustion of the butane that hits on the ice because the heat source is so small. If you took that snowball and you put it in a pan on a stove and you're able to overcome that cold, it's water. There's no question about it. But the way the experiment looks on YouTube, it looks like snow is not real. So, but I share that as crazy as that sounds, I applaud asking the question.
Fundamental. That's how science works, right?
Because we don't see that much anymore. And the benefit of it, what that does is it allows for discussion, and it allows for discourse. Okay, well, is snow real? Can we determine that? And then I'm better for it, and you're better for it. And I would love to see, just like the kids on the bus, if they had just broadened their knowledge base a little bit, right? And just done a little bit of research, they could have discovered some information, because we could have talked about that there are burgers that are made from ground pork, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there could be some truth to that, but typically it's ground beef. And there could have been some discussion and some exploration instead of basing a opinion based upon your knowledge with no desire to challenge yourself or expound on what you think you know. And that's what I would like to see more of, us taking our own responsibility to say, okay, hey, listen, despite your point, right? Despite us living in the hectic world that we live in, I'm just not comfortable. I've seen 8 videos and they all agree. That's not confirmation. That's concerning.
Right. I've not seen the other side or the middle or anything yet.
Anything else?
So how can I stop?
Right.
You know, I at least need to go back to my source of it was the other way and say, okay, can you refute any of the things that are in these videos? You know, like, or what's, I don't, you know, it's a scary thing, you know, with the kids in the bus. It's, and that parallel to adults nowadays, because again, what was the point? What was the reason for their snap judgment? It is what it sounds like.
Right.
And as long as it sounds, that make sense? Isn't that?
It just makes sense. It just made sense.
Who would ever name something what it is not?
Right.
And
right.
Without a full contextual understanding of how words come into being, you know, how, you know, colloquialisms become actual, you know, names of things, and, you know, solidify the existence of that thing that did not exist with that name before. Even if you don't scratch that deep, it's just, don't you see how people our age and older still just say, oh, good, there's an Affordable Health Care Act that must, by definition and the rules of the universe, mean that is going to make healthcare more affordable.
Right.
And there are those who know that's not the case, and they will use that to their fullest, you know, and we have to, as you said, we have to be able to look beyond the first page. We have to be able to look beyond one side of the story. You have to come to it as though you know nothing. You keep the knowledge that you have. You don't lose everything you've learned about a topic, but you come into the new question, because it wouldn't be a question if you understood it all already.
Right.
You come into the new question with, maybe I might learn something new. If you just had that, you might not fall for the, you know, this is what we want you to believe. We're going to say it 20 times and there it is. Go away. You've got your answer.
Right. Right. And while you're here, I'd like to sell you some chocolate-free protein donuts that's gluten-free.
Which, come on, who in the world, right?
If I could give a closing thought, I think I would just say that I think, I mean, this is something I could probably talk about all day. I think we are lacking a solution to this problem. I don't see how we get around having a well-informed. This is a representative democracy. It is dependent. That system depends upon an informed electorate. And currently we are not as well informed as I would like us to be. And I don't have a viable solution for that right now, because our current information centers and our current preferences lends itself to echo chambering and groupthink. And there's no or little incentive, it appears, to inform yourself to the point to where you can look at a politician and wade through the talking points and get to, okay, that does make sense to me. You know, I can separate the wheat from the chaff, and we don't even have the ability to do that, it appears, right? Not to pick on Donald Trump, but to have Donald Trump make a statement like, we're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. And for that to be plausible in the minds of some people, it's plausible to think that we would even have the ability to force Mexico to pay for it. So, my close here is we have to get to a place collectively as a society where we are demanding that unadulterated, unpackaged data information so that we can start to decide for ourselves. But there has to be a yearning for that from us to demand that from the information sources. And that's what I would like to push for. And that's what I would encourage anybody to do. Don't accept what's being presented in these prepackaged talking points and videos. Don't accept that. There's more to the story, I guarantee you, and you deserve to know more than you're being told.
My last words on this topic for today would be directed at the people out there. You know who you are, that you have time to look into some of these things, and you know you do, but you don't take any time to look into these things. I gave this piece of advice the other day to someone, and it is: just because you don't know that someone is trying to planning to rob your house tomorrow doesn't mean that your house won't get robbed tomorrow. Just because you want to enjoy your life is not an excuse for ignoring what life actually is, and its pitfalls and its ups and its downs. People are not perfect, thus societies are not perfect, thus the world is not perfect. If you don't know the game, then you are not going to perform as well in it as you could, and you might lose. So I'll encapsulate that all with a statement that's probably been said a million times. Just because you don't want to play doesn't mean you're not in the game. And I would say to the people, turn over the stones. If you have the time, if you truly have the time, I'll go on a moral limb here and say you almost have an obligation.
I agree.
To the rest of the people that don't have the ability to turn that stone over, to just look. Just look. Don't be closed-minded. Don't be fear-driven. Don't excuse yourself by saying, but I just want to be happy all the time. No, nobody said you have to be unhappy. If someone asked me right now, to the degree that I understand reality, I have some humility here. To the degree that I understand reality, if someone asked me, would you rather be really happy and not understand reality to the degree that you do? My answer would quickly be, oh, absolutely not. I'd rather be as happy as I am right now, which is pretty darn happy. I have a good life, but I don't have to ignore what can happen down the road. And part of this is what I really want to tell all of you that have the time, because you have the energy to do it. Part of the reason that I have had so much success in this life is because I did see what was coming down the road. I did turn over the stones. I did look, and I accepted life for exactly what it is, not what I want it to be. That would be my last word.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. Looking forward to do this again soon.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. This is Brian. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you'd like to support us and our mission to foster real dialogue, you can find us on most major social media sites, including Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, X, Threads, and TikTok. Just search for the Fourth Branch Podcast with a numeric 4. Please reach out to us if you have a comment or an idea for a show. We mean it when we say we want to hear from everyone, and we're serious about including you in the conversation. Got a topic that you're passionate about? Let's talk about it. We'd love to get you on the show and allow you to express your views. Once again, thanks for listening. Can't wait to talk to you soon.